Good morning and welcome to ACO on Air at Vision London. This morning we have Chris Pottage, who's from Skanska and also works with the World Green Building Council. Morning, Chris. I understand you've been presenting this morning at Vision London on the World Green Building Council, amongst other things.
Yes, that's correct.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I spent a lot of last year on secondment at the Green Building Council from Skanska, and we were working on a report called Health, Wellbeing and Productivity in Offices, the next chapter for green buildings.
Very good.
And we were looking at three key aims, really. One, to gather evidence for the health, wellbeing and productivity benefits of occupying healthily designed green buildings. Two, to propose a common framework of metrics for actually capturing and quantifying those benefits. And three, to get that out to a broader non-technical audience.
Right. And have you started to collect the data? Has that been successful?
Yes. Well, since the report released last September, I've been working with some of my colleagues in Skanska and beginning to apply this framework of metrics in some of our own office buildings. And yes, it has been successful to date. It's been an interesting process, not without its challenges, but we're getting there, and we're really starting to learn a little bit more about our buildings. And the intention with that is to feed that into the next step of the World Green Building Council research process.
And will that help change the way people design and the way people plan new buildings in the future?
Well, that's certainly the intention, and that's certainly the message that we want to promote, is that currently, or in the past, we haven't necessarily been designing buildings to facilitate the needs of the occupants to the full extent. And yeah, we want to take some of the evidence, make some of the links to the actual physical features of the building and how people receive them, and start to capture the benefits, and then feed that information back into design processes so we can start to design healthier green buildings.
We seem to get a lot of talk nowadays about public realm as well, and about the outside of buildings and how people use the space around them. Is that something that falls into this as well, or is it more about the interior?
Well, no, I'd say that's certainly a key element of healthy building design. Of course, in an urban setting like London, you don't necessarily always have the freedom to select the ideal spaces, or with the ideal connectivity to transport links and so on, or with views of nature, access to recreational spaces. But I would describe that certainly as a very legitimate and significant element of healthy building design.
Yeah, fair enough. I understand also you're looking at the use of energy as well, and starting to create data on how to support buildings and their uses of energy. Is that something that falls into the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to a certain extent I wear two hats, and I work within Skanska's green business team, and we deliver energy performance contracts, which is essentially a low carbon refurbishment to a building, in which we will either fund it ourselves or find third-party funding. We will carry out a series of energy conservation measures, and then we will guarantee the energy performance thereafter.
So you can actually be that specific to enable a guarantee then? Absolutely,
yeah, and that's the business that we are in. So that's what we do, and of course this move towards looking at the health, wellbeing and productivity benefits is another way of us enhancing that business case. So we're not just looking at the energy and associated cost savings to furnish our business cases, but we're also starting to look at the operational efficiency of organisations within workplaces, the productivity and working outputs of employees, and getting to a stage where we can actually really start to quantify that and add that into that business case. But certainly this area of research is all born out of the energy efficiency movement within buildings in the first place, yes.
So in terms of the benefits for the employees and those people working in the offices, what sort of things what's going to be the outcome for this? How will they benefit in the future?
Okay, well, I think there's several areas. Firstly, you can look at the occupant benefits in terms of. I think we all intuitively know that we like to occupy pleasant, airy, bright spaces. But what is the actual science behind that? And that's really what we're trying to find out a little bit more about. There's a lot of evidence out there. For example, looking at daylight, obviously it helps well-being, it helps satisfaction, but there's also evidence out there saying it helps regulate your sleeping patterns, which obviously helps you to recharge and helps your subsequent productivity. From an organisational perspective, we're looking at ways of using a building and optimising a building in terms of energy and the way it supports a healthy environment for its occupants to ultimately increase that organisational efficiency, both from an energy and a health and wellbeing perspective.
I recall when I was in my early days of work, we used to talk a lot about sick building syndrome. I suppose this is the sort of the updated version of how to deal with that in the end.
Yeah, very much so. I think this is really the counterpoint of that. And back in the sort of mid to late 1980s, I know there was a lot of research went on in the USA into sick building syndrome, and at that point, that realization came about that a building can really negatively impact its occupants if it's not designed for the purpose that it is designed for. And I think we've seen a little bit of a change in focus in the research over the past 20 to 25 years, where people have started to realise that actually there are some pretty significant positive human social benefits of occupying a healthier building. So if we are able to start designing health into our buildings, then we can really start to yield those benefits. Going back to the point about energy or health and well-being, one of the points I've just made in my presentation is that the typical organisation spends around 1% of its operational costs on energy, where it spends around 90% of its operational costs on people. So if you think about an ambitious energy refurbishment project, you might hope to save around 40% of energy and associated costs. Now that's going to save you 0.4% of your operational costs on an annual basis. Now, if you save 1% on your staff costs, you're going to more than double that return. So
the maths is easy.
The maths is very easy. It doesn't take a giant leap of the imagination to see that there's a huge amount of additional value there.
Yeah, and I think the past has also been littered with where did we start? Back in the days when there were a lot of foundries and industrial units, and we started to look at lighting in factories and workspace that people were doing their mechanical or their physical jobs. I think this is just the next stage.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of evidence out there to show that in these sorts of workplaces that there's been a lot of lost productivity through presenteeism, where people are coming to work and the actual work environment within these foundries and factories are not supporting positive health, and so people are not capable of carrying out their job to the best of their abilities because of that indoor environment that they're working in.
So is Skanska working on any specific projects at the moment in terms of their building programme or projects that they're involved with at the moment?
Well, we are starting to look at our own buildings first. We've certainly seen that as a key stage in the development of this research. And I wouldn't like to say too much about it, but we're certainly learning. We're learning some good lessons in how to apply a framework of metrics on our building, and we're starting to get some really useful information out of those metrics to start to inform A, how we operate it, and B, future design processes.
And I guess if you can demonstrate what you've done at home, if you like, then you can start to look at your client base and give them the case study and show the benefit.
Exactly. To a large extent, there's a lead by example sort of theory behind that, and yeah, we see it as the first place to start on our own buildings, and then and look at the benefits, start to conclusively demonstrate them, and then start offering that to our clients as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you for having me.